SouLeer.
It definitely is. I forgot to zoom in on it there. Sorry, I was typing in the chat, complaining about how difficult this match is going to be. This is truly a caster's match, Steadfast. Soul versus SouLeer, up there with Time versus Showtime. Hero Marine versus Marine Lord. Hero versus the other hero. If you're in the Latin American region, there are 3 players named Dark, Darking, and Dark Unnamed. It's just or Darkling, Dark Unnamed. It's terrifying. So this ought to be a ton of fun though. Now, interestingly, if you look at this matchup and you didn't know what the scores were beforehand, you'd probably say SouL is a much stronger player, and I think that's still true, Steadfast. I think SouL is probably the favored player, our Terran player probably the favored player. But if you look at the results in Group D right now, SouL's record is 1-2. He's actually lost 2 of his 3 series already. Of course, SouLeer has lost all 3 of his series. So I thought this might be, when going in, like yesterday, I was like, okay, SouL versus SouLeer. SouL probably looking to cement his spot in the top 4 in this group. But no, our Terran player is still fighting for his life here in Group D.
Yeah, and it is we talked about the 2-1 map scores, but yeah, this is a really tough middle pack in this group. SouL, obviously, very likely to get that #1 spot. But you have Stefano, Rail, Petit Drogo, Euthermal, and SouL all battling it out for that middle position, one of those playoff spots. And SouL, this is definitely a must-win for him to be able to consider himself still in contention.
This is so good, and it's so funny. With every tournament, there are benefits and drawbacks to the format of the tournament. I think a lot of us are used to like GSL-style groups, where the whole group gets finished in a day, and it's wrapped up nice and tightly with a bow, and you can sort of look back after 5 games and say, okay, clear winner, clear losers, and we know what happened. This DreamHack format, a little bit more complicated, but it really rewards people who stick around and watch a little bit more of it, because of course these groups don't finish before one another. All 4 EU groups are going to finish on exactly the same day, which means that we can sort of chart the trajectory of all 28 players. No, sorry. 8 times 4. Let me try that again. All 30... God. All 32 players over the course of the entire week. So we're in a very interesting spot right now. As you said, a lot of players fighting for those middle spots. And right now it might feel like you're not getting a lot of satisfaction from the games. You're like, sure, they played a game, but nobody qualified. Nobody got knocked out from this game. It doesn't matter, right? But no. All of these games matter immensely, but we just won't know how until the last few days of the tournament, where all these players are going to be scrapping, not just for match wins, but very likely in Group D, as you said, with all these 2-1 and 1-2 players for individual map wins. It's going to be so tight here in Group D, Steadfast.
It really is. And by the way, an excellent grenade right there from SouL. He pushed both queens away as they were kind of getting a little bit far off creep, and that allowed him to come in and snipe that creep tumor. Really nice move. Of course, in the Zerg versus Terran matchup, where it ends up being bio versus oftentimes Ling Bane-based compositions, creep spread is so important. Oh, nice snipe on that Hellion. Denying a Hellion's also important. That's a lot of... Technically, that's half of his map control right now until these additional Hellions show up.
Yeah, that Hellion pushed away. I will say, Steadfast, I told you I would follow your camera earlier, and I totally forgot about that. So I'm on your camera now, Steadfast, if you want to take us through this match. I trust your observational skills.
Sounds good.
Rock and roll. Sorry about that. We talked before the match, and I was like, yeah, Steadfast, you can observe this. You're a great observer. And then, of course, I completely forgot about it. So we're back on. Now, Baneling Nest coming down. Lair Tech finishing up. Third gas getting taken for SouLeer. Steadfast, can you walk us through SouLeer's build a little bit here? What has he gone for right now, and what do you think he's going for in the late game?
To be honest, I think he's just mostly going for pretty standard play. The gas timings are pretty reasonable. He did, of course, focus on this layer first. Going to be seeing a very quick Baneling speed. That is something that SouL was, when he first started to dominate, was really well known for. Just incredibly safe play. Of course, when those first couple medevacs come across the field, having Baneling speed makes the defense so much easier. And, well, it's... SouLeer is quite mechanically good. He's a bit of an underrated player. In fact, speaking of SouL, he is one of the only players who very, very nearly took a game off of SouL in this group.
Yeah, he really did, and it's been so scary to watch some of these players going up against just such a dominant force like SouL and able to hold their own, which again, I know to the players doesn't feel like a win. I mean, because, you know, technically it's still not a win, but for us as viewers and for the overall scene, I feel like being able to compete against a player like SouLeer and put up a strong fight feels incredible to see just the challenger sort of pecking away at the utter dominance. I always like to remind people, I mean, think back to late 2018, early 2019, where if SouL entered a tournament, he was just gonna win that tournament. Like, there was basically no point in watching the grand finals because you knew what was gonna happen. Nice surrounds here from SouLeer though, but Soul is gonna be able to force a cancel on that base. Very well done. Was that a cancel or a kill?
That was a cancel, but
okay,
man, that was so brazen from SouL right there. I love it. He recognizes there's no banelings right in the vicinity, and he knows that with the Medivacs healing and Hellions kind of body blocking a little bit, he has, you know, a few seconds of uninterrupted DPS, and he just focuses that down and gets the cancel. That is such a big deal in this ZVT matchup.
Yeah, man. The cancel, of course, it's so much more significant against a Zerg player, and that's the reason you see Zerg players fighting so aggressively to save these bases, because it's not just the economy, it's the larva as well, and when you're going for a Ling Bane, even up into Ling Bane Muta style, like we see SouLeer angling for, larva count becomes the most important, well, one of the most important resources. Is that fair to say, Steadfast?
I would say it is absolutely one of the most important resources, and, well, attention is one of those as well, and we see SouLeer jumping into the natural expansion, going to be picking off a ton of workers, and now if he can get a lot of workers, he may be able to sack this base, but he is going to try and save it. There's a couple of tanks in the back, though, providing some really nice target fire, and, well, this is still a very scary position for SouLeer, but he is getting so much damage done on the other side of the map. 30 SCVs have gone down.
Ah, jeez. You know, Steadfast, as long as we've been casting DreamHack, it's stayed true. These matches rarely come down to who actually wins the fight on the other side of the map. So often, the matches come... Cute transfused, by the way. The matches often come down to who can do economic damage while they're having a fight here. I will say SouL's army looks very scary. Engaging with these queens, SouLeer desperately wants to save this fourth base. Waiting on some more banelings here. So far, SouLeer's target firing has been good. He gets the fourth base again, but Steadfast, I don't know if that's enough. Losing so many SCVs back home, SouLeer can probably afford to lose that base and still feel like he's in a decent position. Steadfast, can SouLeer still win this one?
Oh, absolutely. He's 30 workers up. He's got his mutas now on the way. He's got 2-2 on the way. To be honest, I really would have preferred if he had just given up that base so long ago.
Yeah.
He could have, you know, focused on creep in other areas of the map. He could have mined out these minerals here. He could have taken a fourth base, and then by mining out those minerals and securing his creep spread, secured a fifth base with that high yield gas. But now he ends up kind of bleeding out a little bit more maybe than he should have. And SouL is going to be able to kind of build on this momentum a little bit.
Yeah, the Mutalisk count not quite scary yet from SouLeer, and he's losing a few here. Engaging with those Mutas one at a time. Terrible control from SouLeer, feeding those Mutalisks into the Marines, and there's also a drop at the natural here. The Baneling's slightly out of position. This is really good play from SouLeer, who realizes he's got to get this really aggressive push going because he can't support an economic win behind this. The tank on the low ground shelling away at +2, and I'm pretty sure he's going to deny that +2 melee attacks. There it is, and might even be able to get the +2 Carapace as well. That's going to be a huge win for SouL. He's looking more and more scary as the game goes on. Finally, this will get cleaned up, and with that cleanup, how do you feel about SouLeer's position now, Steadfast? I feel like I'm just waiting for SouL to like make the pressure, and then I just ask you how it's going to happen.
Well, I mean, I feel a lot better about SouL's position right now, and I'm sure he does as well. Tank with 35 kills will finally get cleaned up by those mutas, but SouL, he has absolutely regained initiative in this game, and he's up 25 army supply. He's gotten back to a healthy worker count. SouLeer is really reeling right now.
As a casual observer, I always love to point out that, like, the Mutalisks have not been across the map at all yet for SouLeer. That's always my metric if you're doing well on Ling Bane Muta. Nice dodge those Widow Mines by the Mutalisks, by the way. That could have been really bad. But I always love to point out that if you have Ling Bane Muta, ideally, and I think it's fair to say almost all the time, you want those Mutalisks to be across the map, harassing mineral lines, picking off SCVs, maybe cutting off reinforcements if possible, being forced to use these Mutalisks defensively, and sure, he's going to clean SouL up here, but take a peek at the resources and units lost tabs here. 15 Mutas have gone down, and SouL's army supply continues to grow here. SouLeer is being forced to use this army in a way this army is not intended to be used, and SouL looks like he's in a really strong position now, despite losing that massive number of SCVs earlier in the game.
Yeah, it's really interesting because SouL, he recognized that he was in a really good spot, and he just did not even bother clearing out that creep in the middle of the map. GG is called, of course, the freight train that was SouL just absolutely choo-chooed its way right through the army of SouLeer. And, well, it really came down to not sacrificing that fourth base. I think if he'd done so, and, you know, started up his 2-2 a little bit quicker, gone right up into those mutas a little bit quicker, he would have been in a really good spot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so tough, right? Because SouL put so much pressure on him. SouL is such a good player, really realizing that, okay, crap, I've been cleared out here, but realizing that if he sacrifices a lot of Marines now, it's going to save him a lot of Marines in the future there, keeping that pressure on SouLeer continually. It was funny to watch SouL sort of adjust his play. We saw him initially going for the dual-pronged harass that makes Terran players so scary sometimes, drop in the natural, and pressure at that bottom 6 o'clock fourth base at the same time. But then I feel like after that got cleaned up, he was like, wait a minute, why am I attacking in two places at once if I can force him to engage with my entire army? That's much more scary, and then just pushing that army straight up the middle of the map and forcing SouLeer to engage with it, really pressing his army supply advantage there. So again, an unsurprising win. I think SouL is probably the favored player. Famously, SouL is a late game practice partner against SouL, or has been in the past, so a phenomenal player, especially in the late game against Zerg. Expected to win this one handily, but SouLeer put up a pretty darn good fight there. That Ling run by, I definitely thought the game was over. It's hard to imagine the game not being over when you see that little notification pop in the side, and it's like, bing, 10 SCVs, 15 SCVs, 20 SCVs, 25, 30, 34 SCVs go down. You're like, well, this game's over. SouL pulling it back. Game 2, Pillars of Gold, Steadfast. Is this a Zerg-favored map? Should Terran and Protoss players go on strike? Should we remove it from the map pool forcibly and petition Blizzard to never put Pillars of Gold back in because it's so biased towards Zerg players?
I think we should just take it one step further. Let's just remove Zerg. Let's, you know, it's about time that SouL and Raynor stop winning tournaments because of their imbalanced race.
It's just unfair.
That's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke. That's a joke. No Reddit thread, please.
Somebody's going to clip that just before you say that's a joke, and you're going to get taken so hard out of context. You're like, I thought he was a Zerg player. That traitor. Get him out of here. Pillars of Gold, I feel like people call it a Zerg-favored map, but man, when you're up against a Terran player, Terrans have so many opportunities to set themselves up well on this map as well. So regardless of what the general community thinks, I feel like Pillars of Gold is just a great map, and you'll hear me say that about pretty much every map in the map pool right now. Just looking so good. Let's go ahead and intro our players. Spawning in the top right-hand side of Pillars of Gold, LE in the red. It is our Zerg player representing Team Exxon and Spain. His name is SouLeer.
And his opponent spawning down in the bottom left position of the map representing Cosmos Esports. It is the blue Terran player SouL.
This is so cool. Cosmos, a team that was formed, I think, at the beginning of this year, end of last year, give or take, with some big name players that have been being added to the roster. Of course, GG Emini is the team captain for Cosmos Esports, and they've been able to pick up some really nice additions to their roster. Steadfast, can you talk a little bit more about, since you're a member of Team Exxon, I don't want to make you come across as biased or anything, but can you tell us a little bit about what Team Exxon's been up to? They have really arisen, or you guys have really arisen this year as a primo team in StarCraft 2, and you've been putting up some big name players and some big name results in a lot of these events. I'm back on your camera, by the way, Steadfast.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. So yeah, there is a lot of really, really powerful players on Exxon, of course. One of the biggest names is Special. Special, I believe he already won Latin America.
Yes.
At this point, it almost feels like SouL in 2019 going to a tournament. Like it almost feels like a foregone conclusion.
Yeah.
For a little while Kellizer was contesting, but I feel like Special has really elevated his play since then.
And it helps that Kellizer doesn't really practice and hasn't for like 3 years. He's been like doing other stuff in life, studying and I don't know, having a girlfriend or whatever real life is like.
That's so weird. I don't know why you do that.
Gross.
Why do you want companionship? Ugh.
Gross. But who else? Who else is on Exxon? What is like? I don't know. I don't want you to spoil anything or give away any inside info. But like, how has Team Exxon been able to build up such a great roster in such a short time?
Well, the manager / owner Drickett is really good at recognizing talent, recognizing up and coming talent, and he found I wouldn't say not necessarily found, but he was one of the first to recognize how good Geralt is.
Oh, sure.
And you mentioned it last season. He was able to beat, I don't remember who first, but I remember he also beat Lambo and a Laser in the lower bracket when people were saying, you know, Protoss just can't beat Zerg. Like, it just doesn't happen.
Right.
And then you have Geralt steps into the fray, and he just knocks these two horsemen of Zerg, these two apocalypse makers of Zerg.
Absolutely.
So him, we've got Geralt special, Max Pax.
Nice.
Needs no introduction. He is absolutely ridiculous. Another player who has really started to break out in the last, couple of months. That save right there. SouLeer, who is another very good player, of course.
Yeah.
He's got really solid mechanics. We saw in that last game his decision-making needs a little bit of tightening, but he is, his counterattacks specifically have been really, really strong. Nice micro, by the way, from Solo. He has picked off.
Yeah.
He's picked off all 4 lings with this Reaper.
Jeez, that's impressive. The Reaper will finally go down. Good cleanup from SouLeer, but yeah, a little bit late. And now the Hellions in the natural. Oh, no! SouLeer's Queen's blocked on the ramp by the drones. Actually, a pathing error from those Queens. And with good target firing here, Soul can get a lot of damage done. SouLeer not microing very well at all. And again, the Queen's causing some pathing errors. Both of these Hellions still alive, forcing a loss of mining time, but 6 drones going down. And there's more to the party. Oh, my God, with only 2 Hellions. That is incredible damage from Soul. Trading out 2 Hellions for 6 Lings, well worth it. And look at this behind this, Soul going for Cloaked Banshee, something we see less and less of as the game gets more and more mature, but still very scary. Sorry to interrupt your discussions about Team X on there, Steadfast, but really nice work there from Soul.
No, not a problem at all. And I want to highlight why that was so effective in addition. Is because Soul was such a nuisance with that Reaper. He maneuvered, he got those 2 lings in the middle of the map, or I guess out front of the base, and then he jumped to the main base, picked off the other 2, and it irked SouLeer so much to the point where he dragged all 3 of his Queens out of position, and that's what left the opening in the natural, and that is what caused so much damage. And, well, oh man, Soul, he is thinking about going in once again. There's not enough lings here.
Yeah, it looks like enough links, but again, these Hellions going to find a really nice position. Now, a great surround by SouLeer. There's some really nice micro to move those lings out in front of where the Hellions are going to be, and then obviously target them back there to get the surrounds here. Still, though, 8 more drones go down. With the pickoffs of the Hellions, is that worth it for Soul? Is that still good damage, Steadfast?
I would say that is very good damage, to be honest. That was... actually, wait, did the Banshee get some of that damage?
Not that I know
Banshee
of.
got 2 kills, it looks like. I don't know if those were drones or not, but
sure.
Either way, pretty nice. So finding a couple lings is always a nuisance as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that Baneling Nest was actually a big saving grace for SouLeer, because you saw Soul, he kind of darted up towards the top side here, and then all of a sudden he darted into the mineral line. And what he thought he was able to do is go up to the top left and kind of hook himself in behind those mineral lines. But instead, he actually went the wrong way because of that kind of funky placed Baneling Nest.
Right.
And that saved SouLeer from probably, I would say, he might have lost all of his lings.
Oof. Maybe,
I think he would have lost quite a few more drones, to be honest.
That's one of my favorite adjectives in the world, funkily. That funkily placed Baneling Nest. It always feels weird to say, but when you pull it off, you're like, yeah, you know what? That's a great word. I'm going to use that more often. I just love it. Anyway, sorry, yeah, the weirdly placed Bane. I feel like I undercut your really impressive StarCraft point by just making a joke about the language you chose to use, but genuinely, Steadfast, I am loving having you on for your intense Zerg knowledge here. It's so nice to have somebody who can speak really intelligently about what these players are doing. Additional barracks coming down now from Soul, and he's going to go up. I think those are barracks 4 and 5. Yeah, coming down now for Soul. So he's going heavy bio, as we see in the upgrades tab. Stim coming down, Stim finished up, combat shields on the way, and it looks like a +1/+1 drop coming down for Soul as he, repairs those Banshees up. Smart play from Soul to keep those Banshees alive. They add so much damage. Now, Steadfast, I feel like I'm seeing fewer and fewer cloaked Banshees. Is it the same sort of thing that's happening with, like, single Liberator Harass, where it's just that Zerg players are getting so good at defending that it's harder and harder for Terran players to find real damage with things like Banshees and Liberators?
I think it's a little bit to do with the rise of the triple command center build, a lot more economic focus. Battle cruisers are still a possibility, but oh, look at this counterattack.
Oh no! Nice, sorry to interrupt there, nice surrounds in the tanks, but luckily there's just enough firepower there for SouL to take this out. SouL is finding himself in a great position here with no banelings on the field until these finish up. He's able to snipe that 4th hatch, great transfuse on the Overseer. The banelings on creep should force this away, but look at the micro from SouL, trading out 1 Marine for 1 baneling, able to get back on top here, and now the Banshees are here. Luckily, as we saw, that Overseer saved, so 1 Banshee goes down, but now these Marines have got sort of red, they're seeing red right now and really going deep here. Is this an overcommitment from SouL?
It was until the Banshee sniped off about 4 of the 5 remaining banelings, and then there was only 1 left, and SouL, he is just going to snowball this to a win. What an